You've heard all about Caleb Wilson, but y'all do not sleep on Derek Dixon. This dude has a legitimate claim to be the best shooter in the 25 class.
This is Tyler Zeller, and you're listening to Locked On Tar Heels.
You are Locked On Tar Heels, your daily podcast on the UNC Tar Heels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, what's up? It's Wednesday, July 30th. How is it? Almost August. Good grief, Marlow. 2025. Welcome into the Locked On Tar Heels podcast, the only daily North Carolina show out there. I'm your host, Isaac Schade, and you're joining me at the place to get your Tar Heels content every single day. It's all part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Hey, thank you for making us your first listener watch to get your Wednesday going the right way. Special shout out to all the everydayers here with us, all the members of the Locked On Tar Heels Discord. That link's in the show notes. We'd love to see you in there. It's free to join. And our Locked On Tar Heels insiders going next level with the show. Coming up on the show today, it is the third week of the UNC men's basketball roster preview series. We've already hit Caleb Wilson. We've already hit Isaiah Denis. And today, we turn our attention to the third incoming freshman, Derek Dixon, to help me break it all down. It's my good buddy and yours, Josh Marlow from the Heel Tough blog, Four Corners podcast, doing all the stuff. He's a busy man. He's a great man. Man of the people, you might even say, Marlow. And so, guys, if you're not already tuned in to what Marlow and Anthony Pagnotta are doing over there, man, you are missing out, and you need to go get in on all of their great content, especially right now in the lead up to the football season. Great positional breakdowns coming out right now from these guys. I've been tuning in, and you would be blessed to do the same. So what we're going to do on the show today, Marlow and I are going to give you the Dennis, good grief. How many times are we going to do that this year? The Derek Dixon bioblast, the scouting report, his expected role in his freshman year, 3 things to work on as he gets settled in, bold predictions, and of course, as we always do, an over-under. So all that said, I'm going to turn it over to Marlow to give us the bioblast on the man, Derek Dixon. Marlow, hit us.
Shay, I want to thank you for having me on once again. I think it's going to be a fun conversation, and let's get right into Derek Dixon. As you mentioned, he's a freshman out of the 2025 class. His position is listed as a combo guard, something you see Hubert Davis target a lot in high school recruiting, maybe more so away from the traditional point guard that you saw under Roy Williams. He comes from the DMV area. He comes from Washington, D.C., having played at Gonzaga High School, played for Team Takeover on the AAU EYBL circuit. He stands at 6'3", weighs 190 pounds. It was a 4-star recruit, and because of that, he was able to get Jim Tanner a bonus for his contract. We learned that when they released the contract details last week. His recruiting rankings kind of vary, but a consensus top 55 recruit. ESPN ranked him 55th. Rival/On3 had him at 43. 24/7 Sports, the site that I primarily use, had him rated 45th. He committed to Carolina back on September 27th of 2024, the first commit in that class for Hubert Davis, and he chose the Heels over Pittsburgh, UVA, and Vanderbilt. And as of this moment, we do not know his jersey number. We'll be excited to see what number he wears as playing a guard for Carolina, but there's a look at Derek Dixon's bio, a guy that I think arrives in Chapel Hill with some modest expectations, and I think he's going to be a guy that I'm excited to see grow and develop over hopefully the next 3 to 4 years.
That's a great way to put it, Marlow, with that of modest expectations of like he comes in with a great reputation as a shooter, but it's like there's so much in front of him from a depth chart standpoint. Obviously, we'll get to that later in the show that it's like, dude, you ain't got to come in and do a bunch this year. Just keep learning and growing, and that'll be incredible. All right, Marlow, as part of the BioBlast, a game I always like to play is looking at the Twitter handle and the Instagram handle and giving it a rating of 1 to 10 on being able to understand who on earth it is. So Derek Dixon's Twitter handle is at Derek Dixon 03. And Marlow, look, my man is classing it up a little because it's the 0 with that little slashy thing. You know what I'm talking about? So I feel like that's some cool points right there. And then Instagram is at the Derek Dixon. By the way, don't confuse it with Derek_Dixon. That's like the top Derek Dixon you find when you Google Instagram Derek Dixon. And it's like some model dude and he's got his shirt off, and it was definitely not our Derek Dixon. So you gotta be careful with a common name like Derek Dixon. So Marlow, we don't have consistency between the two social media handles, but it's pretty obvious who it is. Well, where would you rate it? 1 to 10 on knowing who this is?
Yeah, I think I'd go with, I guess, a 9 because it's pretty straightforward. You get some creative points with the 0, with the slash, and it's going to be pretty easy when you go to Instagram. And if you search the top Derek Dixon and you see a guy who's confident enough to have his shirt off in his profile picture. So for one, I can tell you, Schade, appreciate basketball recruits that make it easy to identify them whenever you're trying to tweet at them or follow them when they're cutting down their list or making their commitment. And Derek Dixon, I think, did a good job. So I'll give him a solid 9 on his social media rating scale.
I like that. I appreciate it. You're so right. I haven't thought about it from that point of view of like, man, we're out here trying to find you dudes and you're making it difficult sometimes. Yep. I appreciate it. I wish Carolina would start doing this. Some schools, like on the roster, it'll just have the icon for all of their social medias and you can just go right there. That makes life so easy. Speaking of which, can we normalize pronunciation guides on everyone's rosters? Please, dear God, thank you very much. Okay. Marlow, a couple questions here before we dive in to the scouting report on Derek Dixon. A couple weeks ago on the show, we did, as I said earlier, Caleb Wilson's pre-season preview. And obviously he comes in as the undoubtedly most heralded of these 3 freshmen, right? Top 5 at worst, top 10 recruit in this entire class. But because of that, and because of both Derek Dixon and Isaiah Denis being, in the 50s, and I know Denis is even lower at some other stuff, does it feel like maybe we're not appreciating enough what Derek Dixon might be able to bring to the table in year 1? Yeah,
I mean, I think right now it's maybe harder to tell, and I know because it's only July, we got to see how this plays out.
Yep.
But this is a guy that I think is going to be a rotational piece for Carolina, I would imagine, in November, in December. Interested to see what it looks like once you get into conference play. And it's the one thing I love about this non-conference schedule, Schade, as opposed to last year. Last year, it was so brutal because you were playing top 10 team after top 10 team. Carolina never got a chance to figure anything out. They were just trying to win games. And whereas this year, you've got your marquee games, but you've got the opponents on there that hopefully these games are put out of reach early in the second half so you can learn about some of your freshmen that you need to grow and develop, not just this year, for over the next couple years. So I do think this is a guy that could have a bigger role than what you maybe anticipate for a 4-star recruit. That was a consensus. We mentioned there in the bioblast of the number 44 player in his class. But I think with the things that he can do in terms of being able to be a 3-level scorer, I do think there could be some trust from Hubert Davis to where he could play significant minutes deeper in the season than maybe we're sitting here thinking about today.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And a lot of it is going to depend on the headspace, right? Like, is it Cade Tyson where he's debilitated and can't get out there and ball? Or is he Kerwin Walton, who was the only freshman in the Roy Williams era to shoot 40% from 3? And so it's like that side of things, because this dude is coming to be a shooter. He can do it from outside. His mid-range is lethal. He's a 90% shooter at the free throw line. The more he's able to go and just get buckets, obviously it's going to be impossible to keep him off the floor. And Marlow, I love your point about the schedule too. Not only is the schedule itself enable more opportunity to figure out depth and rotation and let guys get reps, but I think that is probably the biggest win of the ACC dropping back to 18 games is it allows 2 more of those kind of opportunities that you're referencing. And so I think that's going to be a big benefit in this portal era to see more guys get more opportunities early and let coaching staffs, not just Carolina, around the nation, figure out what they got. And that's so tough to do because it's all about the teams that can figure out their chemistry first are the teams that win.
Yeah, no, you're definitely right. You mentioned the portal era with the way these rosters turn over. You need time to build before you get into conference play. And the ACC, they're banking on less being more. So you go from 20 down to 18 games, but you take the other 2 and you can still schedule them. I think for 95% of the ACC programs. Jim Phillips wants to see them schedule power conference competition. Carolina doesn't have to do that because there are so many marquee events as they already are. Fort Myers tip-off, you got the CBS thing, you've got the home and home with Kansas. So Carolina maybe used the other extra 2 games to play, lesser opponents, but those games will be beneficial in the short term and the long term. And I think he's a guy that could really stand to benefit from those games, because I think his role is going to be really dependent on, does Kyan Evans make the transition the way that I've talked about this summer, where I think he could be an all ACC guy? Yeah. And then what is Jaden Young? Can he be a quality backup secondary ball handler? If he's not that guy that they're banking on him to be, the Virginia Tech transfer, that's really going to open the door for Derek Dixon. He can gain that confidence when he's not having to play against a top 10 opponent every single night, and play against some competition that'll ease his transition to the college game.
And if Carolina can do all those things you just said, it helps their net ranking so much as well, because it's all about beating the absolute mess out of inferior opponents. So hopefully all of that comes together well, as you said, and Derek Dixon finds a way for himself. As we continue on, I want to ask Marlow a big picture question about recruiting players like in that 50 range like Derek Dixon is, and if that is a potential path forward to finding more consistency year to year. Plus, we're going to take a look at the scouting report, strengths and weaknesses for Derek Dixon. All coming up in just a second. Right after I tell you about 5 Hour Energy, it's time to fuel up and turn it up with 5 Hour Energy Transfusion. It brings the bold grape, ginger, and lime flavor of your favorite golf drink, minus the alcohol, into a quick, energizing shot. Whether you're sinking birdies or just making memories with friends, this one's a hole-in-one for your energy game. And let's be honest, some days on the course or even off it, you just need that extra boost to stay sharp and energized. I'm not much of a golfer personally, but man, I am a mean mini golfer, and I've hit some crazy shots. But really, when I'm out there, it's just all about the good times with good people. I'll go golfing with my buddies, but I just drive. I'm the cart boy. That's what I do. So it's all about good times, good flavors, of course. And so the grape ginger lime flavor gives you the best parts of the clubhouse go-to without having to chase down the beverage cart. So if you go to 5hourenergy.com today, that again is the number 5hourenergy.com. You can use my promo code LOCKEDONGolf to receive 20% off your order. That offer is only valid until September 30th on one order and cannot be used with other promotions. The code is not good on subscription orders. So whether you're meeting up with friends or trying to turn 18 holes into 36, get the energizing boost you need to power through. Order transfusion flavored 5 Hour Energy shots today. Marlow, I want to use Derek Dixon as something as an archetype, a model of thinking about high school recruiting in this day and age. Because obviously, there's this balance you have to strike of getting players that are going to be able to play, but not getting players that are so low that they'll never develop and they'll transfer and leave and go. It feels like maybe these players in the 40s and 50s range might just be that sweet spot where they get enough of a taste their freshman year that they might stay and develop and grow into a 2 or 3 or 4 year player that allows you to keep more of a program mentality. Like somehow Shaka Smart and Marquette have figured this out where guys stick around. Is that maybe a path forward for Carolina, guys in the Derek Dixon range?
I would like to think so. You look at Roy Williams' last national championship team, and you had McDonald's All-Americans and 5-star recruits on that roster, but they were developmental 5-stars, and they were guys that were in the program 2, 3, 4 years, so on and so forth. And that was pre-portal, pre-NIL. All that stuff is even more magnified in the portal era, where roster turnover has been outrageous the last handful of years. I'm interested to see with revenue sharing here how much that maybe dilutes a little bit. But we've already seen recruiting change in the last handful of years. You're seeing major programs or big time head coaches like a Rick Pitino at St. John's not even value high school recruiting. There's just we've got $20.5 million. We can go buy the roster that we want. John Calipari talks about this as well with what he's done at Arkansas.
Yeah.
I'm a big listener to the Eye on College Basketball podcast. Gary Parrish said that if he had a son that could play college basketball, and let's say he was a top 70 recruit, but was 68 to 72, he would tell his kid to go to the mid-major level, play a bunch, and then after a year or two, transfer up to the group of, the power conference level and secure the bag. And so I think this is a great sweet spot for you to build the foundation of your program, because that's the most important thing. And it's something Hubert Davis, I think now, post RJ Davis, post Armando Bacot, he's got to find that the next core that's going to be the rock and the foundation of his program. Guys that are rated in the 40s that are going to have to stay in college, you would imagine, 2 to 3 years. Those are the perfect type of guys to kind of build your roster's foundation from. You go into the portal, get the 1 or 2 things that you need from the portal. I think Carolina's going to have a presence internationally recruiting as well. That's a different type of player that you're bringing into your program. So, I think Hubert Davis, in a perfect world, when he targeted Derek Dixon, when he targeted Isaiah Denis, were guys that were going to be in the program a handful of years that could supplement a guy like Caleb Wilson that we expect to be in Chapel Hill for just one season.
Man, that's a good word. I'm right with you. Big Eye on College Basketball podcast fan. And I love GP's point with that. And look, Kyan Evans is a great example of that. Someone coming over, as you said earlier, from Colorado State. And example. And that's what the portal and NIL should be about, is letting guys elevate and find their best spot. I love that. Great points there. All right, let's move on to the scouting report here for Derek Dixon. Marlow, let's start with some strengths for him. And I'll ask it in the way I always do on these shows. He will already play in college and see the court a lot because of this skill. What would that be for you?
I think it's ability to score the basketball in a multitude of different ways. I don't want to compare him to RJ Davis, because RJ Davis scored 2,000 plus points at Carolina, but he can shoot it from the outside. He's got a mid-range game. And then when he gets to the foul line, he's dang near automatic. And I always say, and it's been proven maybe wrong because it didn't happen with K. Tyson, but in this era of basketball, Schade, I think shooting translates. If you can put the ball in the basket, you're going to find your way onto the court. Now, you got to have confidence to go along with your ability to do so, and maybe that's the correlation that was missing there for K. Tyson. But the fact that Derek Dixon can just shoot it and shoot it very well and shoot it very efficiently, Hubert Davis is going to love that, because he wants to have more shooters on the floor than he had at his disposal a year ago. So I think, as much as anything that his game has to offer, his ability to put the ball in the basket in a diverse but efficient way, I think, accelerates his role as a freshman for the upcoming season.
That's a great way to put it. Diverse and efficient way. I'm filing that away, and I will credit you always. Yeah, I mean, to your point about just being able to make buckets, especially as a shooter, being like a diamond that people can't ever find. Here's a quote, Marlow, I read from his high school coach. I can't remember this was, but I've kept it filed away. He said, quote, "I believe he," meaning Derek Dixon, "is the best shooter in the country, regardless of class. And the way that the game is played right now, that's a superpower," end quote. And we can debate about whether he was the best high school shooter in the class or in the country, regardless of class. I hope that's true. Good grief. But I love that he called it a superpower, because that goes right in line with what you just said, my man. And so if he's able to do that, and if these other guys are able to do it at the level they have, be it Kyan Evans, be it Luka Bogavac coming over, being Veesaar being able to step out and do it a little bit, Jonathan Powell, all of these guys, I mean, Carolina should have shooting for days, and hopefully Derek Dixon can get on that train as well. Maybe it's like, Marlow, obviously my Braves don't know how to do this year, so congrats to you. But like in the same way that hitting is contagious in baseball, it feels like teams making shots from outside has some contagion to it as well, and hopefully that'll be true for these Heels.
I'll tell you something else that I really have enjoyed watching him, since he became a Carolina recruiting target and watching the film and everything. For a guy that can shoot the ball as well as he could from the mid-range, and the outside. I always thought like his shot selection and his feel for the game was really, really high. Sometimes when you see these guys that are big-time scorers and their head coach is saying they're the best shooter in the country, well, that's because they're launching, 28, 30 shots a game. And they are the focal point of their offense.
Yeah.
And Derek Dixon could be that. But I felt like he always just knew, okay, when do I need to get to the mid-range and take that shot, as opposed to when do I need to stay behind the three-point line, open up the defense for myself and other people. And so I thought his feel for the game and his IQ, I think that's something that I think Hubert Davis will appreciate, this coaching staff will appreciate, because I do think if there's something that you could have been critical about Elliot Cadeau in his 2 years at Carolina, and he wasn't the same offensive player that Dixon was in terms of his scoring prowess, but there were different times where there was just a lack of IQ, a lack of feel for the game. He knew how to run a fast break, and we loved that as Carolina fans. But there were other things where we're so used to knowing having our point guards have a feel for the game.
Yeah,
I think Derek Dixon has that feel, and I think that'll play a big role in whatever his role is going to be, because I think he'll know when to, create offense for himself, but create offense for his teammates.
That's so true. His IQ has stood out to me in a big way. And when you as a freshman are able to play with, I'll just say, maturity beyond your years, that is going to, like, how often does Coach Davis talk about it? Like, you earn that time in practice. And so if he's able to do those things and give himself an opportunity, I think it'll show up. One thing I'll add is just this isn't something he's been able to work on. It's just God-given, but his positional size is nice. And obviously, how many times, Marlow, have we all talked about it this offseason, how much bigger Carolina has gotten both through the portal and through high school recruiting. And so, you think about that compared to Elliot Cadeau and RJ Davis, both of whom we've mentioned on this show. And it's nice to say 6'3", 6'4" combo guard. That just feels good coming out of the mouth, Marlow. All right, let's turn our attention to the other side of this scouting report then. Potential weaknesses, right? We've already talked about how high his IQ is, how great he is as a shot maker, but where does he still need to grow at this point? And I'll ask it the way I always like to. If you were an opposing coach creating a scouting report, what would you try to exploit?
Yeah, I mean, I think the two things that might hinder him as he makes the transition from high school to Carolina is he the biggest, most explosive athlete? I would say he's not. You don't have to be. Marcus Page wasn't. RJ Davis wasn't, and they were very two accomplished players. I do think the handle is going to have to be something that needs to be improved upon as he makes the transition. And it's something that, we get so tied or so caught up in, can he get crossover and dribble behind his back and do the things that Kyrie Irving does at the NBA level. And all that is fancy and it's sexy. But, there is just something to be said about being strong with the ball in your hands. And so I do think there's something that maybe that's the one thing you really want to take away. Even though he was able to get to his spots at different points in high school, I do think the handle could be a little bit tightened up. I do think the explosiveness and the athleticism, that's where I think that comes if he stays in the program, in the system, 2 to 3 years. So if that's probably the one thing I would want to exploit, because with his positional size, as you mentioned, at 6'3", if he's a bought-in, a defender, he could impact on that end of the floor, and they're not going to be targeted the way teams targeted RJ and Ellie Cadeau the last couple of years. And so, if there's one thing that stands out right now, having not seen any footage outside of the alumni scrimmages so far, that would be one thing I would say would need to be if I had an opponent, I'm attacking him as he makes a transition.
Yeah, it's interesting because he's not uber athlete, right? He's not Seth Trimble. He's not Drake Powell in that way. So he's not this elite on-ball individual defender. So I might try to attack that. But also, it seems to me, Marlow, as you said, in the limited footage we've seen of him, that, like, not obviously in those scrimmages, it's not team defensive concepts, but in other games that he is bought in as a team defender. And because of that feel and IQ that you talked about earlier, he knows what he needs to do as a team defender. So it's like, I might try to, if I'm an opposing coach, might try to isolate him and let my best athlete go attack him and get by him. But because of his team defensive capability, he might be able to slow that down. And so it's like, I think he's going to wind up being like old man, crafty YMCA player where he just beats you with his smarts, and good luck to all you athletes out there. Right. And so I think that'll be super fun. All right, Marlow, we need to wrap the show. And to do that, we're going to get to all our miscellaneous stuff. What role is Derek Dixon going to play on this team? Plus 3 things to work on, bold predictions. And I got an over-under for you, my man, that I hope is going to stump you a little bit and make you think. We'll wrap the show with all of that in just a second. All right, Isaac Schade, Josh Marlow. We're talking Derek Dixon today as we carry on with the summer roster preview series for men's basketball. Josh, let's go to this. What is your expected role? Maybe we can just define it as expected place on the depth chart for Derek Dixon this year.
Yeah, so this is something that I have really kind of battled internally and then even externally when I've talked about the upcoming rotation for the next season. I mentioned it earlier, and I'll kind of reiterate this. I think it's really all dependent on what Jaden Young is for Carolina this year. Yeah. You have a beautiful layout here for us, and you listed kind of in order. You have Kai Evans, Seth Trimble, Luka, Caleb Wilson, Henri Veesaar, Jonathan Powell, Jarin Stevenson. And then you go down to a second list that you wrote down. You had Zay Denis, James Brown, Jaden Young, Zayden High. I find it hard to believe he's not going to be, at worst, the 8th guy that's playing for Carolina in November and in December. The hope is, Schade, is that he's doing that in January, February, and March. I think if Carolina is going to be successful, there's no doubt in my mind they've got to be deeper. And Hubert's going into his 5th year. There have been 5 years I've looked at a depth chart and said there's legitimate talent. There's been legitimate depth. And by December, I'm on my podcast screaming, you need to play 6 dudes because these guys we can't win with the other guys. And that's not how you build a sustainable program. Look at the 2 years where there's only 1 year he had legitimate depth, and that was not even the national title year because you played 5 guys. It was the year you won the ACC regular season title and were a 1 seed, and Carolina was still playing really 7 dudes, maybe 8 at the most. So I expect him to be the 8th guy in the rotation in the non-conference season. I think if this team is going to achieve what we want them to achieve, he needs to be the 8th guy when we get into conference play.
And be the 8th guy, not because of injury or because of underperformance from other players, but because he is making the ball at that clip and at that level that he has forced the coaching staff's hand with that. And so I'm right with you. I think he is going to be number 8. That breakdown you read for us, Marlow, I have those other 7, I think, pretty clearly and definitively ahead of him. But then I think legitimately with Zay Denis, James Brown, Zayden High, and Jaden Young, at this point, I would have Derek Dixon ahead of them for various reasons, be it skill set or role or whatever it is. And so I think 8th is the sweet spot for that. And we'll see how it all plays out. Given that, the 8th spot, I'm imagining probably somewhere in the range, and just looking back at previous Hubert Davis teams, that 8th player on the depth chart plays like 12 to 15-ish minutes per game on average. Does that seem about a good number for you?
That would be a healthy number, and I think it'd be a step in the right direction to there being a legitimate, thought-out, built rotation that on a consistent basis, night in, night out, who is going to play and what the role is going to be for them when they're stepped onto the floor. 15 is maybe the high end. Yeah. I could see him playing 15 minutes in some of the lesser non-conference games in November and December. I think he probably maxes out at 12 when you get into conference play, just because I do think, I think Seth Trimble is going to be a dude that, because of his motor, is going to play 34, 35, 36 minutes a night. If Kyan Evans adjusts to the power conference level the way that I expect him to, I think Hubert Davis will be comfortable playing him 32, 33 minutes. What you want to avoid is the situations that you ran into the last couple of years where, RJ Davis had to play 38, 39, 40 minutes a night.
Yeah, that's true.
You go back to the regular season finale loss to Duke on his senior night. I mean, he quite literally ran out of gas.
Yeah.
But because there was just a lack of trust for Hubert to turn to anybody else on the bench to give him a breather or two. And so, if he tops out at 15, I would be ecstatic. If he could play 12 minutes in conference play, I think that would do wonders for Hubert Davis and for this roster, because I think it'd be a sign that there's a legitimate rotation being played out. And that's something that, quite frankly, we haven't seen during his durations on the sidelines in Chapel Hill.
Man, that's a good word. Trust, trust, trust. Derek Dixon needs to prove that he is trustable. And because of everything we've said, because of everything we've seen, there's no reason to think that he won't do that. It's just got to translate mentally. I think as long as it does, it should be there. Marlow, just for time's sake, let's skip past the 3 things to work on. Let's go straight to bold predictions. You want me to go first, or you want to go first?
I'll let you go first.
Okay. Do what?
It's your show.
Oh, fine, whatever. All right, here's my bold prediction. Marlow, since Roy Williams took over as the head coach of the North Carolina Tar Heels back in 03, 04 season, yes, I'm using aughts, there has been just one freshman to make over 40% of his threes. I'll trivia you on that in just a second. My bold prediction for Derek Dixon, obviously with bold predictions, they should be wrong. This is an out there, like, unbelievable scenario. Derek Dixon becomes just the second freshman since the beginning of the Roy Williams era to make 40% of their threes, minimum attempts 50. So, Marlow, A, there's the bold prediction for me. B, do you know who that other freshman was?
I only know because I believe you referenced it before we got rolling, and that was my guy, everybody's guy, Kerwin Walton, during the COVID year.
That's correct. That's absolutely correct. Kerwin Walton, what is it, 42%? I had it pulled up earlier and I got rid of it. Single season 3-point field goal percentage. Kerwin Walton, where'd you go, homie? Of course, I lost it as I'm sitting here. 42%, made 58 of his 138 attempts. Crazy, crazy stuff there. And crazy, that I remember writing articles during that time about the freshman 3-point curse for Carolina and Kerwin ultimately breaking it. So anyway, that's my bold prediction. What about yours?
I'll go, we mentioned when we talked about his offensive skill set and him being automatic at the foul, I think he shot over 91% in high school. I think he'll be Carolina's leading free throw shooter. I don't know if he'll have enough attempts to qualify for ACC or nationally, but when we are looking at it from the microscope of Carolina, which of course is what this podcast is all about, I think he'll be Carolina's best free throw shooter, and it could be a big reason why, if they're playing a close game on the road in ACC play, he's on the floor, because Hubert Davis knows when he goes to the foul line when a team is trying to play catch up, he's going to make more often than he misses.
I like that one, Marlow. That's sneaky. Nice prediction, my man. Okay. Over under, the last part of the show, folks, we want you to play along and let us know your bold predictions as well. Over under 40 made 3-pointers in his freshman season. What you got?
So I started doing the math when he gave me 40, and because 40 is a real tricky number, because obviously Carolina is going to win the national championship, which means they're going to play, they played 37 games, I think, last year. So they're going to play, you'd imagine 40, 41, maybe 42 games, which means he has to average one make a year. And if he's playing 8 to 12 minutes a night, I do think that's possible. Kerwin Walton made 58 his freshman year. Yep. So that's 18 over this over-under. He shot 42%. I'll go over, but just by 1 or 2, because I do think he'll be a guy that when he gets hot, he'll make 2 or 3, and he'll be able to maybe stack some that overcome when he has an off night, or if he has a night where he does not get a lot of minutes. So it took Kerwin Walton some time to really become the player he became, and he made 58. I think Derek Dixon might have a bigger role in November of his freshman year than Kerwin Walton did. So I'll give him the over, albeit very slightly.
Man, I hope that reality is true, and I hope your prediction comes true with the over, because if not, I'd be sad. All right, folks, there's Derek Dixon for you, wrapping up the whole freshman portion of everything we're doing here with our summer roster preview series. That means we'll move to the sophomores next week, and I haven't decided yet if we're going Jay Powell or James Brown yet, but those 2 guys will be the next 2 in some order. Going to be a lot of fun. Big shouts to our guy Josh Marlow for joining us here at HTB Heel Tough Blog _Josh on the Twitter machines. Make sure you give him a follow if you haven't already. And Anthony Pagnotta, his partner in crime over there. Check out the Four Corners podcast, the Heel Tough podcast and blog. Again, as I said, great stuff. Going to help you get ready for everything upcoming this fall. And, man, is a great go-to source. If you've not subscribed to Locked on Tar Heels already on video and audio, do it right now so you don't miss a second of our show. If you're not in the Locked on Tar Heels Discord, man, we'd love to have you in there. Great community of Tar Heels talking all day long, every day. Free to join in the links in the show notes. Also, if you want to go next level, join the Locked on Tar Heels Insider program, where you get one-on-one conversations with me, free access to all of my stats, charts, data, record books, all of it. Great stuff. It's always a great day to be a Tar Heel. We'll talk again tomorrow with Coach Rob, but until then, peace.